Welcome to Josh's Cemetery Chats. What's up, Bearheart Nation? How's everybody doing out there? Today, I wanted to talk a little bit about the future of humanity. Now, that might sound like a scary topic, but we got some cool stuff to get into. But before we get started, I do want to talk for just a second about merch and the Patreon. As you can see here, Fred is ready for summer, and I'm ready for summer with my Bearheart Nation merch. So if you head over to the Bearheart Nation merch shop, there's pillows, there's a couple of different models of t-shirts, there's some really cool stuff over there to help you get ready for the dog days of summer, which are coming up in July and August. So go check that out if that's something that you're interested in. The Patreon is another thing I want to talk about because I've got some really cool perks set up over there. There's some other stuff that I'm working on that's going to be coming up real soon that you don't want to miss out on. So go check out the Patreon. You get your name in the video, you get early access, you get all kinds of different perks. There's some different things in there I send postcards monthly to patrons, so go check that out. And with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into it. So with everything going on in the world right now, there's been a lot of things happen recently that just really got me kind of worked up, and some things that I wanted to talk about and bring up, because that's the whole purpose of this channel, whether it's to talk about things that are fun or talk about things that maybe seem a little bit more serious, but I want to have fun with the things that even seem a little bit serious, like the future of mankind. So current world events involve wars and human rights getting taken away, and just things that shouldn't be going on. And for most people, when you hear the news, just turning on the news nowadays makes it feel like the world is coming to an end. But I'm here to tell you that that's not actually the case. This isn't the first time in world history that it seemed like the world was going to end. We've had the fall of the Roman Empire, we've had the fall of the Egyptian Empire, we've had catastrophic events. I mean, the people in Pompeii the day that volcano went off, the ones that survived probably didn't think they were going to survive. It always seems like the world is coming to an end. There's always something else going on, and it can be really scary at times. Now, the reason this topic really appeals to me, and I got to thinking about it, was because I'm a big fan of Star Trek: The Next Generation. The Next Generation because Picard is better than Kirk, and I will fight you on that. So the whole purpose of Star Trek is it's set way in the future. It's around the year 2400. Different variations of it take place at different times around that time. But the whole idea is that humankind has gotten to a place where a lot more tolerant. The things like wealth and starvation and some of the bad parts have really taken a wayside and have been taken care of. They aren't a problem anymore. So they've gotten so far advanced because of working together and because they've found a way to overcome some of these other issues that humanity has faced. They're exploring the universe, and they're interacting with other species and other planets, and they're just checking things out. And when I see a show like that, I get, one, hopeful for what we could do as a species working together, and then I get upset because, like, all this stuff going on right now, it's hard to imagine how we could possibly get there. And the question I've asked myself and pondered over and over is, does humanity even have a shot at getting to the future envisioned in Star Trek? Now, personally, I think that it does. I think that over enough time, people will figure out how to work together because we've done it before. We've had some really rough times, and we've had some times where we've come together to overcome obstacles, because humanity is a social species. And early on, we evolved from very tribalistic groups where there were very small tribes. Anybody outside of your tribe was an enemy because potentially they could be coming in to try to steal your resources. And unfortunately, we haven't really worked past that from an evolutionary standpoint. Even if you look, if you look online, and there's a common thing that people talk about all the time with the internet. People tend to group up, and it's because they're hiding behind online anonymity, and they are very focused on us versus them. And it's become kind of a trope, but it's the honest truth of how the human psychology works. Is we want to be grouped, we want to be a part of a group, we want to be part of the in crowd. So no matter what we're searching for, no matter what we're into, we tend to gravitate towards that group. Now, where this works for us is in times of trial, when there's something really rough going on, a really hard time that we're going through, and we can group together with a bunch of other people and we can overcome that hard time. Or if there's a task in front of us, there's a big goal that we need to accomplish, we can group together and we can overcome that. But that works against us in times where we don't have that common enemy, when things, for instance, in society nowadays, for most of at least the first world, problems are very, I don't want to say they're not real problems, but problems are much different than they were a few thousand years ago. We aren't facing the same kind of difficulties. Now, in some parts of the world, those difficulties still exist, and a lot of that has to do with the governments in those areas and the people in power, and some of it has to do with just that people, they don't want to change from what they have because they have what they see as, they've got it good. They enjoy their life. They don't have to worry about things technology related or some of the more modern things. And it's ultimately up to each individual country or group of people what they want to do and where they want to go to. But overall, in the first world, a lot of the medical problems that we faced even 100 years ago don't exist in the same way that they did back then. A lot of the issues with food production, like crop growth and that kind of stuff, we've overcome a lot of that stuff. Now, not all of it's been overcome, and we're still working on a lot of it, and there's still a lot of medical things that we're working on. But what we need to be doing as a society and as a whole, instead of looking at these individual differences between groups, you know, especially in the United States where I live, politics has become insane the past 7 or 8 years. People have started to pick up on this idea of, I mean, they almost treat it like a sports team. And you know, I try not to get political in my videos because I feel like it's really divisive for a lot of people, and most people, you start getting political and they start backing off like, oh, I don't want to talk about that. It's important to talk about. But what I will say is, it's not a sport. People treat it like a sport. They act like, you know, my political team is better than your political team, and they get really, really up in arms about it. But they go one step further, whereas, you know, a lot of times if you're rooting for a sports team, you get disappointed with a loss. When it comes to politics, when people are treating it like sports, they don't stop there. You know, they get so tribalistic and they get so into their corner of, if you don't agree with me, then you're against me. If you're against me, then you're my mortal enemy. You know, they treat it like a life or death thing. And yeah, there are some things politically that become life or death because ultimately the people in charge are the ones making the rules. But when you start treating it like that, when you start treating it like a taboo subject, like we can't talk about it because any sort of discourse, any sort of disagreement between us is a terrible, horrible thing to have, I don't think that's healthy or productive. And that is a big part of why things have gotten to where they are. And it's not just in the United States, it's been happening all around the world in countries like England and Scotland and France. And they're having elections where people are fed up with the people in power and they're voting in other people, and it's getting messy and getting angry, and then you wind up in situations like we have with the war in Ukraine where people are getting killed every day because the people in power have made the decisions they've made, and it's because nobody wants to talk about it. You know, we need to have the conversations and not get angry and not get frustrated, not get fed up. It's important. If we're going to be adults, we need to be adults and actually have the conversations. Wow, I got a little bit more worked up than I meant to. But you get the point. It's important to have these conversations and to talk about these topics and cover them, because for the future of humanity, if we ever want to get somewhere, if we ever want to get to a place where we aren't just bickering all the time, where, you know, in the idea society, in the idea future, hunger won't be an issue. People won't be going hungry because we'll have the means to be able to provide for everybody. Poverty won't be an issue because realistically, money is a made-up system. You know, in Star Trek, they make it very obvious that, like, they've gotten past that. Money is no longer a thing. You don't get rich. You go out and you do things for the betterment of society because you want to better society, and everybody has housing and everybody has food, and you know, it's all these things that if we ever want to get to that point where people aren't suffering the way that they're suffering today, we have to be willing to have these conversations, to talk about these things, to move past some of the more difficult conversations and topics. So I think that's going to do it for this video. Like I said earlier, this is my secondary channel. I have a primary channel where I have documentary style videos. I try to cover lesser known legends and things that, you know, maybe haven't been covered to death on on YouTube. Mainly been focused around Ohio, but I am starting to kind of branch out and focus around the surrounding states because I like to travel to the locations for those videos. So if that's something that you're interested in, if that's a style of video that you like, go check that channel out. I've also got a bunch of these cemetery chats on the channel because that's where I started doing these, was on that primary channel. So this is kind of a branch off of that. So I'll put the playlist up here for that, so you can go check those out if you're interested. I got nothing else for you. Everybody have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one.